as I was saying, what Gebser says happens in this pralaya, this period of the disintegration of one culture cycle as it moves into the next, is sometimes you'll get avatars, human individuals who, as it were, I don't think he means this literally the way, say, Rudolf Steiner would, but I think he means it figuratively. You get these sort of individuals who come along who are avatars of the new energies of the emerging consciousness structure, as in the case of the axial prophets of about the 6th century BC. From 600 to about 500 BC, we began to get, as the mythical consciousness structure was disintegrating and the mental consciousness structure was beginning to shift and move in and begin to come in now in both the classical Greek and the Magian civilizations, we began to get around the world individuals such as Buddha, such as Confucius and Lao Tzu in China, such as Socrates and Plato and Pythagoras. All of these individuals, Mahavira in India, in addition to Buddha, who's the founder of Jainism, or one of its reformers anyway, we begin to get these individuals now, and this is also the period of the Hebrew prophets, who come into being to announce religions now of self-salvation, where the individual now can no longer be saved by the state. Prior to this period, all religion had been more or less a function of the state apparatus, a state-sanctified official religion, and we can already see the enunciation of this movement from the official priesthood. Notice that the religious form has shifted from the shaman in the magical consciousness structure of the Paleolithic to the priest, who's the official spoken representative of the goddess during the epoch of the Neolithic, to the rise in the Bronze Age of the priestess and the god king, a la Gilgamesh, who is the god king of the city of Uruk. And after the death of his friend Enkidu, there again we have the idea that death, the confrontation with death, is the motivator of the human being to find higher truths, to go in quest of the other world, the spiritual reality that motivates him to leave the city of Uruk and go on his single journey by himself, alone. He undertakes a shamanic vision quest. He retrieves the archaic shamanic vision quest and goes out in quest of Utnapishtim, the one man who has survived the flood. And the last flood, if you do the mathematics and look on the Sumerian king list, had taken place in Sumerian myth precisely 25,000 years prior to Gilgamesh's time. That was the time when Utnapishtim had lived. And here he is on the island of Dilmun, which is today's Bahrain. This was Dilmun, where there was a fish god cult there and a baptismal water cult that may have been associated. It was associated with the god Enki's son Enzak, who may have been linked with Utnapishtim, and Gilgamesh goes in quest of him to find someone who will mediate for him on behalf of this spiritual realm, which he fails, of course, but he is rewarded by his quest, the same way Goethe rewarded Faust for his quest, by the gods for becoming, when he dies, he becomes the judge of the dead in the underworld. So in a sense, he does indeed become immortal, but we can already see there the early forecasting of the coming of the axial religions, where in Gilgamesh, who was, after all, a Lugal, a god king of the state of Uruk, a beginning dissatisfaction with the official state religion. In this case, it would have been the religion of the priestess goddess Inanna and her cult of castrated males who literally did actually castrate themselves to her and offer themselves to her. That survives in the Hellenistic Cybele cults during the Hellenistic period. And Gilgamesh refuses to play the role of the dying and reviving god king. He doesn't want anything to do with her. And this is symbolic, of course, of the rejection of the official religion of the state apparatus of Uruk and the retrieval of the inner private shamanic vision quest. And the earliest forecasting in literature, Gilgamesh dates from about 2000 BC, the text, not the king. The king ruled about 2600 BC. The earliest forecastings of what happens with the coming of these axial prophets around 600 BC that Gebser is talking about here, who are the kind of avatars of the new mental consciousness structure in its early phase, which is still linked with religious ideals, and the ideal that you can use the mind to engage, undertake the process of self-salvation by linking yourself directly to the gods, getting rid of the priesthood. This is the whole Hebrew prophet rejection of the official priesthood that Christ continues down with Christ, who also rejected the Sanhedrin, the official priesthood, and puts it in the hands of the individual. It's kind of early Protestantism here, in a certain sense. And so we get these avatars, and so Gebser says that likewise something similar may happen, although it shouldn't be in human form. In the age of the shift into the integral A perspective, we should start seeing avataric energies, although because this consciousness is space-free and time-free, he doesn't believe that it will manifest itself validly in the form of prophets. He says this in this chapter, but on the other hand, he really does talk about men like thinkers like Sri Aurobindo and Teilhard de Chardin, himself, of course, as prophets and avatars, in the same way that Mani, the founder of the great culminating Gnostic religion, saw himself as the mouthpiece and prophet of the Paraclete. In a certain sense, these men, for Gebser, are the prophets of the integral consciousness structure. And so I think in a certain way, even though he denies that there should be human avatars announcing in an analogous way the coming of the new consciousness structure, I think it does turn out to be the case that these men that he admires and regards as building cosmologies that are equivalent to his integral consciousness structure are more or less the prophets of the integral age. It's a little bit like the ending of the film 2001: A Space Odyssey, with the descent of the Star Child representing, perhaps in Gebserian terminology, this descent of the supermetal toward the Earth, Yeats's rough beast slouching towards Bethlehem to be born, as it were, for the age of the integral consciousness structure, which is presented here by Gebser as a kind of new age. And so this chapter has this sort of millennial apocalypticism to it that we haven't seen in Volume 1, I don't think. So this is a little different this time around. And he doesn't say that much more in this chapter about the integral consciousness structure itself. But that is the preparation now for moving into his analysis of the integral consciousness structure. The next chapter is chapter 3, on the nature of creativity, which he will discuss as an originary phenomenon.